You are listening to the Author's Message with Denise Joy and Irene Pro for lively discussions and guest interviews on authors, publishers, readers, and of course our listeners. Join us every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern on Global Voice Radio. Here are your hosts, Denise Joy and Irene Pro. I want to welcome everyone to another episode of the Author's Message on Global Voice Radio. I'm your host, Denise Joy Thompson, and with me today is a colleague, a friend, and someone who I respect, I look up to, and someone that I know when I have a question pretty much about anything in life that I can contact. So I am so excited to have Kevin Huhn with me today. And Kevin, thank you so much for joining me.
Denise, it is always a pleasure to be in your space. I love it. You're already in my life. Look, you booked the book, right?
Yeah, so for our listeners, and if you see the video play of this, you will notice that Kevin has a copy of the book behind him that he and I was in. But before we talk anymore, let me just share a little bit about Kevin. And as we go through this discussion, he will share more about his life, which is truly inspirational and transformational. So currently, Kevin is a business growth strategist and results coach. He lives in Toronto, Canada with his wife, and he has 3 children. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is a year-long trip that he took with his wife and his youngest daughter. And for this episode to be occurring in June, I thought it was very appropriate to interview men who are authors and also dads. And so to talk about, being an author, being a dad, and what that means to one's life. So besides the book that we're going to talk about specifically, How to Reinvent Midlife Dreams, Kevin has also authored several other books, and he is a co-author with me in Live in Gratitude Daily. Kevin has also been featured on many media outlets, including Rogers TV, Huffington Post, Fox Sports, SiriusXM, and the Canadian Business Journal. And for listeners, if you want to know anything about media, Kevin is the go-to guy, and we will definitely be providing ways for you to contact him. And even if you just follow his Facebook, follow his Instagram, read what is on his website, you will glean so much information in regards to how to present yourself as the expert in the media. But also I know that he will welcome anyone who would like to book a consult and talk to him further. So Kevin, once again, thank you very much. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm excited to talk about how to reinvent midlife dreams. So,
Yeah, what a title, huh?
Yeah, because we're there, right? Are we in our midlife? Is that where we are?
It's kind of that, it's funny. I would say, I called it like 45 to 55, but really it's like 40 to 60. I mean, people are living, my mom's like 20 years older than I am. She's like 74. And she's still at a point where it's like, there's still years ahead of her. Whereas when I was little, you'd look at somebody 70 something and you'd go, wow, like their life's almost over. Right? She's like, no, I got like a whole bunch, right? So midlife has become this 40 to 60 thing, because I think on the extended side of 60, that's where it's like Yeah, I'm still in the I'm in that midlife scenario.
Well, and I agree. And really, at any point in our life, we can reinvent ourselves. We can recreate our business, our career. I mean, there's no limits in the world today. There is no limits on what we can do, how we can live, and how we can be.
Yeah,
And
totally agree. Totally agree. And it's something that I believe wholeheartedly in. I even go through, and I'll tell you, life is, I used to think life was this, it's going to be like this because I watch everybody else's life and go, it's perfect, right? It's this, man. And then it's backwards and it's forward. And I get caught up in the social media, probably like the next person who goes, oh, look at their life. It's perfect. It's wonderful. Mine's up in the air and this isn't happening and that's not going. And you just got to step back sometimes and just go, so what do I want? So how do I want this to be? What am I looking to make good for me in this next part of my life? And it could be 6 months, 1 year, 10 years, whatever, right? And I'm like, for me, it's like the next 10 to 20 years of going, what do we want it to be? How do I want to do it? Because I don't see retirement. I'm a kind of person, I don't believe in retirement because I think what happens is you get bored and you want to do something else. So you're never really retiring. You may transition. You may go, okay, instead of working for a company or doing something, I'm still going to go do something else. But you're not really retired. You're going, hey, what can I get my hands on? What can I do? Because I don't think anybody just wants to sit around and read a newspaper or sit around and just look in the internet all day. Because after a while, your brain goes mush and you go, well, what? There's got to be more to life than this, right? So I think being active is, I believe, what we do. And when we reinvent ourselves, we go, what do I want? What do I find? What's passionately burning in me to do, right? It might be this. It might be, hey, I want to be on a show with you. Let's do a show, right? It might be, let's share all my knowledge. It might be, hey, let's go help our kids. It might be, hey, I want to volunteer at this park. Hey, I want to, whatever. I want to walk dogs. But there's this other group or this other phase, right? And we'll dive into some other stuff later. But the interesting thing is that we're in a state in the economy, and I'll call it Western world, where people are saying, I financially can't survive without something coming in. So it's almost like forced upon to find something for you to do. Companies are getting younger. They don't want to hire the older because they got to pay the big salaries because of the expertise. Great. So what can you do with that, right? And I believe we are all looking for the kind of one-on-one type of businesses. Like we want the local merchant again. Like we're tired of the big box. We're like, you know what? I'm going to support my little guy who's down the street. Might be a little more expensive, but I like them.
Have a relationship with, right? You go to the local coffee shop. You go to the local restaurant. You go to the local print shop. And, Office Max, Office Depot is great, but it's also good to have the options of the local small businesses. And I think as we look at the economy in the Western world, but even so in some of the other countries that are up and coming, that more people are looking at what skills have they acquired over their career working for large corporations, and how do they now take those skills to build a business that allows them more freedom. And I think in the past, retirement, because people would work until they're 65 or 70, and then they were so tired, right, that they had to then not work. And it was also at a time, I think, where the economy allowed them to not have that third job along with their pension, along with if they had an IRA or with their Social Security. And I think that we're healthier now in our 70s, 80s, and 90s.
We're living longer.
Yeah, we're living longer. You mentioned your mom was in her 70s. My mom is 81. And, she volunteers at the school. She watches her great-grandchildren. She gardens. So she doesn't have a income-producing job per se, but she's still volunteering at 81. She is.
It's still active, right?
She walks 3 miles a day.
Yep.
So if she really wanted to, she could have a part-time job. It's lucky, that she doesn't have to. But sometimes I'm like, slow down.
Like you're more, I've heard so many people say I'm more busy now that I've retired than before. And you look and you go, it's usually because you're going to do things you like doing. And that's why you never look at it as a chore. Whereas a job, it was like, go do the job to get the money, to bring it in, to bring it home. And it's funny because in the last probably 90 days, this is what I've been going through going, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like, what is the ultimate purpose and what's the goal and what's driving me? Because it can't be for the money. Because if it's only for the money is no different than a phone, marker, piece of, it's just another thing, right? And there's no fulfillment in that. But what I find fulfilling is being able to do things like this, get on with you, help you. People call me, coaching, go speak, go do. I go, man, I'm so much a people person, and not everybody is. Some people are introverts, right, and they do the behind the scenes thing, and that's fine. But for me, it's like I got to be around people, and I thought I need the business to be around people. I need a team around me, and the energy, the juice that I get from sharing ideas, throwing things out there, challenges. I love inspiring other people. You know, we talk about local. So here's one thing. I'm going to talk about the trip for a second to show. So we went coast to coast. Canada's quite big, like the United States. You know, you go from one end to the other and back. I think we did 22,000 miles in the RV. And what we found was we wanted to always eat and shop locally. As much as the big grocery stores were out there and you knew they had the staple items, like they were just, they were just there. It was like, hey, let's go check out the local flavor. Let's see what's going on. And I'll tell you, we met people, we became friends. We've become friends with so many people now across the country that are like, hey, got to come back, come see us. If we come to Toronto, let's get together. We stayed at people's houses we met in Newfoundland, which is kind of like being, if you lived in Iowa or something, now you go to New York, right? And now all of a sudden you're staying in somebody's house. Like, what? You go to Cape Cod and you come back into, let's say, Chicago area, and they say, well, we live in Chicago, and you stay in their house in Chicago. Well, that was what we did in Canada. It was like, what? We went to Newfoundland, we come back into Quebec, and they're at their house, and we're at their house. I go, no, sleep over. They had us over for Christmas. I mean, it's like, how does this even happen? Like, how do you try and think, it's a total stranger, but they've become friends. And I believe that we all, as human beings, we all need this thing to connect with and relate. Like, it is about relationships as a human being, right? And it's fun when you meet people and you go, we just get along. You want to spend time with them. And I go, that's pretty fulfilling. It's like, okay. So for me, build a business around that.
You mentioned your cross-Canada trip.
Mm-hmm.
So, and on that trip, you took your wife and daughter. And so talk a little bit about how did you decide to go on that trip? And then talk about the father-daughter bonding, the experience that you had during that time.
Sure. I can't take any credit. My wife was the brainchild of this trip. Our wedding anniversary is actually coming up. It's in June. And in 2014, we said, let's go away. We haven't been away in a while. Let's go away and plan, like, what do we want for the rest, for the next 2 years in our life? So we'd gone away for the weekend, and I remember it being a Saturday, and she goes, I want to go on a 1-year trip while our daughter's young enough. And I went, what? And she goes, yeah, we'll get an RV, and we'll go on an RV. I don't know how yet, but I see this happening. And I'm like, yeah, all right, sure. Because the goal together is we never put down each other's ideas, right? It's like, let's listen. So I'm like, yeah, sure, great idea. Well, the next day, we're driving back home because we're about an hour and a half from home at this resort we went to. And we pull into this RV park, like unannounced, uncalled for. And my wife's a project planner. So she's like, if it's going to be scheduled, we just pulled in randomly and we bought it on the spot. Like on the spot, a motorhome, Class A motorhome. I was like, what? Like, had you told me the day before, and so this is the power, as much as kind of digression, this is the power of law of attraction. You put it out there, you're going to get it. Put out negative, you're going to get it. Put out positive, you're going to get it, right? So we're like, oh my God, we got this. Well, within less than a year, we were packed up, stored in boxes, moved out of our place and in the RV and heading on the trip. And that was June 30th, 2015. We didn't get back to August 1st, 2016. And so my daughter and my time was kind of cool because my wife and daughter had some time. She was doing homeschooling. She's in grade 10. So there was some schooling time. We each had our own times. Like, we just make sure we do things. My wife was working most of the time. She was able to with a laptop and her phone, and the company that she worked for said, yeah, a couple hours a day, it was fine. So it worked out well. So my daughter and I would go out, and one of the things we did was a Tim Hortons in every province. Every province we had to be at a Tim Hortons. So there was some fun stuff. And we'd go out driving and exploring, obviously as a family, but also my daughter and I just had some kind of fun time and quiet time and just kind of joke around and watch a movie here and there or make dinner and stuff, right? So the bonding was cool because of two things. One, yes, we're away from home, so you kind of feel like you're on vacation all the time. The other is a motorhome is very confining. Like we're going from a 2,200 square foot house to a 120 square foot house. You don't have much room without bumping into somebody. Do you know what I mean? So you put up with a lot of things, and you actually, the rules just kind of go away and go, whatever, it's fine. So we joked around a lot, and there was a lot of just kind of laughing and just, telling. It's simple father-daughter kind of things are, example, whether it's tickling, telling jokes, making fun of what we're wearing or what we're doing, those kind of things. And she was at the age where we were showing her a little bit how to drive, like, hey, get behind the wheel. I want to, you don't have your license, but I want to show you on a country road what it feels like. Because if something happened to my wife and I, we thought it's more out of safety than it was out of the law, right? Like, oh, she's not allowed to drive, right? But if we were stuck somewhere, she had to get that motorhome to safety for 5-10 kilometers. Let's make her feel like, okay, I can get behind the wheel, I can do this, right? So we just did small little parking lot things, so just so she can get a feel. So those were little kind of bonding and growing stages and stuff that we went with her, through with her. So that was kind of fun.
So as a dad,
mm-hmm.
and, being that confined with your daughter, and again, she was in 10th grade, 11th grade, right? So she was older, but there's also some things that come along with that age with girls.
Yep.
As they're becoming more of an adult and want independence and things like that. So talk a little bit, was it tough at times? It sounds like you had great fun and
mm-hmm.
you bonded over, laughter and happier times, but also as a dad, was there some difficult times?
Yeah, we all had, there were moments where like my wife and I were like button heads, and it was like, we couldn't see eye to eye on things. And I took the brunt of that because I think part of the journey was not just seeing the countryside and meeting people and having great food and landscape and beautiful scenery, but it was soul searching for me to really go like, who was I? So which kind of tied into the book here, which is How to Reinvent Midlife Dreams, because as I was doing some writing through it and getting it, and I was meeting other people, and I was noticing that there's this, it's a phase you go through where you start looking back on your life and going, when I was 20, I thought my life was going to be like this, and now it's over here, or, vice versa. And you're going, I didn't even think it was going to be like it is. And you start going, what's the point? Why? How come? And I started questioning everything on the trip. So some days I was not in the best of moods. So my wife and daughter were like, we're going out. You stay here, bub. And I'm putting it mildly, but there was...
We'll let you out when we get back in about 5 or 6 hours.
Exactly, right? So there was some like, dude, you go cool off because we're in a good mood and you're not, so bugger off, that kind of thing. And what probably was the saving grace was the amazing nature that we got in. I don't think there's enough that can be said that we all need to be in nature for certain times of the day. Living in the city is great, but I think we need to be out and about in trees and grass and forests and rocks and ocean. Like we just need, because that is about the purest form of this world, right? Cement is man-made, streets are man-made, parking lot, everything's man-made. But when you get in nature, it's almost like your brain goes, you connect with that natural sense. And there was a lot of days it was just go walk and be in nature. BC was gorgeous. The Maritimes were fantastic. The prairies were flat, but everything was different, and it didn't matter. If you were in nature, you're just like, yeah, this feels good. It just felt good. And I think that was just part of the soothing process.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that, and you and I have talked about your trip before, talked about your career and then you're building your business. But one of the things that you also did, you and your wife and your daughter, when you did this, is you went outside of your comfort zone, or you went outside of what you had already created. And oftentimes that is the scariest thing for people to do.
Oh, huge. Let me tell you, So the biggest one started when we bought the motorhome. I'd never driven anything over a van. Well, I shouldn't say. I drove our truck when we moved to Arizona, and we used a U-Haul 26-footer, and I was pulling the truck. But there was something about the truck that was like, okay, we're in a motorhome now. It's like, here's what goes on in your head. Oh, this is our house. Like, this is our house on wheels. Like, you got to be careful. You got to be mindful, right? And then I'm pulling a car, so we're like 52 feet long, and I'm like, holy cow. Now, we get a feel for it. But in the beginning, it was like, I don't want to mess up. I'm driving. Like, this is the home of my family, right? And so talk about getting out of the comfort zone just from the driving perspective. Then it started in the trip. It started to be, it took about 2 months to get, this is our lifestyle. Like, it was like uncomfortable but comfortable. You're like, yeah, okay, we sleep in this, but, you know, it's like, well, we'll be home eventually. Well, after about 2-3 months, you go, okay, let's start getting in the groove. You got to do laundry. You know, you're doing dishes, you're filling up, you know, you're parking at campgrounds, you're driving on the road. It was like, okay, we're starting to get used to this. Well, if you'd have told me June 15th before going out on June 30th, I'd be like, what? Like, you know, I couldn't even understand that. It's going to take a couple of months to get used to things, right? And so as that happened, and then we unfolded, and then we started driving, and we had some hiccups. Like, we blew 2 tires on the highway. We slept for 5 days on the side of the highway because the tires didn't get shipped to this little town we were in for a week. So it was, you know, so you talk about like, oh, yeah, you know, and then becoming a mechanic, a plumber, an electrician on my motorhome because you can't afford some of these guys at $300 an hour. Not that they can't do the job, but you go, can I save the money and figure it out on my own? So now you're becoming, you know, mechanically more inclined than I was before. And then I would say kind of the fun challenges were when we said, oh, let's go ziplining. And I was like, what? Zipline, what? And we looked and we got on it. And it was like, oh my goodness. And in BC, there was one, it was 1.4 kilometers, which runs out to a mile. And apparently in North America, it's the biggest one of its kind. Holy cow. Like, you're 700 feet in the air, thinking I'm going to die if I fall. You know, it's like, so there was a little bit of getting over myself kind of thing. And then some little things, like sometimes it was just shopping in a town. You had no idea. You go, well, we'll have to make do with what we get. You know, you're like, but I'm not used to, well, get over it, buddy. You know, like that was kind of talking to myself there.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, because our old way of life gets in the way of us truly opening up and experiencing the new adventure, whether it's a trip across Canada and you were gone for a year, whether it's building a business, because we created that voice. And so for how many years has that voice possibly kept us safe?
Oh, big time.
From, you know, being uncomfortable. And, you know, one of the things I have found in being an author is once you write it down, it makes things real. And when you publish it, okay, there's no turning back. It is in the world, right? Somebody can Google it. Just as when we put something on Facebook, it doesn't ever really go away.
Yeah. Well, here's a great story. You'll love it. So I wrote Hockeyology, which is the white book here. So I wrote that in 2004. It came out, hockey book. I thought it was pretty good content in it, but there was also a part of me that was so embarrassed, Denise, I wouldn't tell I wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't go out and promote it. I did a couple of book signings in some stores, Chapters, which is equivalent to a Barnes & Noble Borders in the U.S., and I did a few signings and stuff, and I was like, I hardly talked about it because I was embarrassed of the cover. There was all this emotion in me going, oh, people aren't going to like it, then what? So I didn't say anything. So then I thought, and I said, oh, I got another idea for a book some years later, which is this one, How to Reinvent Midlife Dreams. But the funny thing was, when I came up with that one, it was like, you know what? This is about serving and helping other people versus trying to build up my credibility. And I tell you, the psychology about writing a book and getting involved with the project that you did was probably the thing that sent me over the top, because I was like, okay, I'm going to put this out there, but I'm going to put it in somebody else's book. Now, it's a journal. We get it. So, you know, it's different focus and everything. But it doesn't matter. It's still, you got to put it out there, right? And connecting with you and now some of the other authors. And I'll tell you what's been going on. And this is where people don't understand the power of time. we all want instantaneous gratification. I haven't met anybody that goes, yeah. It's like, be in the moment. Yeah, sure. I want it now. Where is it? Right? We want this. And the thing is what happens over time is you actually allow yourself to grow with it. I can laugh now at my hockey book and just go, yeah, there's a lot of good content in there. You want it? Sure. Read it. You'll love it. Yeah, some things are outdated because there were some timely things in there, but there's some good content in there. Whereas 10, 12 years ago, I was like, yeah, it's okay. I was kind of nervous and scared, thinking, what changed? I changed. And I think everybody should write a book. When I was writing my first book, that's what I heard. I heard somebody say, everybody should write a book. And I'm thinking, really? Yeah, we all have a story in us. Right. We all have something that's gone on, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, right? Whether it's memoirs, I don't care what it is. We all have something that we want to share. And you know what? There's so many of us, and I'm going to speak for Canadians because I got to meet a lot of them in the country. We're so afraid. We're afraid to take that chance. Our big, we call it our big brother in Canada. The U.S. is our big brother kind of thing. We go, yeah, look at them. They're bold. They'll go out there. But I've had a chance to meet a lot of Americans that are no different than Canadians. We're in the same boat. We're like, I don't know if anyone's going to like it. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know. And it's like, oh my goodness. And you know what, from the outside in, like here you and I are, we're on the outside. If we were to get somebody else on, we'd talk to them and they'd be nervous and be like, don't worry about it. Yeah, we're fine. We're here to support you. 12 people that don't like you, we don't care about them. That's not even your ideal person, whatever, right? But when you're in there by yourself, that's what goes through your head. You go, I don't know. What if they don't like it? What if they, and I've been guilty of it many times, right? So the journey of writing a book, and I know I'm kind of off topic on it, but the journey of writing a book is really about who you are. Because you tap into some emotions. And man, I'll tell you, it becomes challenging because you go, can I do this? Am I really the person qualified? Who am I to write a book? Like, oh my God, like.
And how authentic, how truthful, how much of myself am I going to share? And then what if I do?
Then it's out there. It's like, oh crap.
Yeah, they're not going to like it. They're not going to like me. And now they know this about me.
That's it.
As you said, if we really look at people, we really are the same. Now, in some ways, some of my Canadian friends, I see them as being braver than some of the Americans. You went across Canada, for a year. Some of the Canadians travel so much more than what I see some of the Americans travel. And so, it's sort of
perspective, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
And mostly it's the circle of friends that we create, right? If I want to travel, then I'm going to be friends with people who travel and want to do things and want to go places and are willing to look at those possibilities. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure in Canada, there's people who've never really left their town or their province.
Oh, we met people. Okay, here, a great thing. So Newfoundland is kind of the start to North America, right? So the Vikings came over at 1000.
And it's a different time zone.
Right. Like from Toronto, it's an hour and a half from here, right? So, yeah.
Toronto and that part of the continent.
No.
I found out it wasn't.
Exactly. They call it Newfoundland. It's actually Newfoundland time. It's got its own time zone, right? But here's the interesting thing about this kind of island. You look on a map, you go, it's a small thing. Well, it's almost 1,000 miles to drive it. Like, it's quite big, right?
Wow, that's like Texas.
Yeah, like you look on the map, you go, wow, it's like a pretty big little
Texas is
area.
Big, right? Texas
It is.
Yeah, we're probably like 1,200, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I'll say this is maybe 800 miles, right? Because it's about 1,300 kilometers, which I think is about 800 miles, roughly, okay? And there was a portion on the island, and it kind of looks like a goat's head, so it's kind of like up here, it's got this body, right? And there's this little island here, it's called Fogo Island. There's an actual hotel there where a lot of celebrities stay. It's like one of the top star hotels. And this Fogo Island has a population of 1,000, period, okay? We met people, never left the island.
Wow.
I'm like, are you kidding? And they're like, well, we have everything. And I go, yeah, local restaurant, local shop, you work here, you fish here, you go, wow. And you think, and they go, oh, you mainlanders, because that's what they call the rest of Canada, the mainland. And we're thinking, oh, I guess, yeah, I never thought of it that way, but I guess we would be, right? So there are people in certain parts of this country, and I'm sure in the U.S., same thing. They've just never left that area, and they think the world is a certain way based on how they live. And my dad told me when I was a kid, he goes, your best education you'll ever get is traveling. It'll open up your eyes to what is going on in the world. And, you know, we've been to Brazil, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Canada, US. And I'll tell you, I didn't understand poverty until I went to Brazil. And this was 1975. And I was like 10 years old, 11 years old. And on the side of the mountains are people living in cardboard boxes. Denise, as a kid, I remember the impact. Now I remember the feeling. But it was like, oh my God, like these kids had nothing. Like to go get water was running down the side of a hill and you go to get it in a bucket. Mm-hmm. And so just an appreciation of these little things. So what happened on our trip, example with our daughter, she gained an appreciation. She didn't, like before the trip, it was like, whatever. She came back and she was like, yeah, things are not like people say they are. Because she got to see it firsthand, right? She made some cool friends as far as adults. Denise, a lot of adults that met her said, girl, you may not appreciate this now, but when you're older, you're going to go, holy cow, what an experience, you know?
I'm amazed. I want to go on a year-long trip. And not to the desert, right? Not the deployment. Those don't count. But a fun vacation plan or an educational, right? But maybe
right.
I'll go on a catamaran around islands in the Caribbean or something like that.
Right. Yep.
That could be.
And there's so many, and you know what? It's interesting. Anytime you can get out of your own hometown and just get out and abroad, this is where education happens. And I'll tell you what, this is how sometimes books get sparked because somebody got this idea about some crazy thing they saw and then they did a story on it, whether it was fiction or nonfiction. Right? True story, or I'm going to make up this character and we're going to go on this fun expedition or something. Great. You know, and I think, for me, one of the greatest stories that really hit home was when we found out about the Alaska Highway, and it was built in 1942. It was the fastest built highway ever. Like in, I think it was 8 months, Denise, they covered something like, I don't know, 2,000 or 2,000 miles or something. Like it's this massive thing. And it was all because of the president of the US at the time said, look, we get hit by Japan and they could land in Alaska and they could get in through Canada. We'll pay, the US will pay for it and they'll build this highway that goes from Alaska all the way through into BC. And so it went through the Yukon and everything. They were going through mud. There was like 11,000 soldiers building this road. I mean, and there's video footage of real stuff. And you're sitting there going, wow, like, you know, this is unbelievable, right? So history in this journey was another part of it. And that's the fun part about traveling. And that's where I say sometimes stories get sparked. You know, it's you actually learned something that you didn't know, or you read it in a book and it didn't have any meaning. And then all of a sudden you see it face to face and you go, whoa.
Well, and that's like a few weeks ago, I went to Las Vegas with my mom so we could visit other family members. And I think years ago, 20, 30, I had gone to the Hoover Dam, but I didn't quite remember anything. And my mom had gone maybe 10 years ago or so. But we decided, her and I, mom, daughter, bonding, right? And to go to the Hoover Dam. And we read all the plaques. We watched a movie about it. We didn't take the tour deep down into the
bellows or whatever they call it.
Yeah. But it was so interesting to have a better understanding of how it was built, why it was built, all of the electricity, the states that are provided electricity. I mean, it was just amazing. And I think everyone in the United States knows about the Hoover Dam, but I don't think, because I didn't, right? I didn't truly have an appreciation or understanding of what that means to our country. And
that's it. And how many other things across North America, and I'm going to use North America only, forget the rest of the world for a second, how many other things across North America are happened, went through, and we are enjoying it today, and we just go, oh yeah, we just take for granted. And that's the piece, if I was going to dwell on anything, that's where get into your purpose, you know, you go, oh yeah, what am I doing? What's going to bring value to me? Because when you have an appreciation, you start going, oh my God. And then you bring a whole new realm into this beyond just, I'm doing it because I need to make some bucks. I need to do, man, it's got to be beyond that. And if you think of the Hoover Dam, think of Okay, so here's one. It's kind of interesting, and I remember being in the Central Hockey League, so I'll talk a little bit about my past real quick. I was in pro hockey with one of the teams in Rapid City in South Dakota, and right near there is the Mount Rushmore. So we did a tour there, and we saw the four faces carved, and then all the rocks that are down in the front, and you think, man, those rocks are like from the shaving, cutting, whatever, right? Do you know that they had nobody die when they built those four faces?
Wow. I mean,
I know the safety and how they built things and how they were, and it took them years. And the guy who designed it, the guy they hired to get it done, actually passed away before they finished it. And it was very cool how it was done. There was a lot of, but the neat history was, and I know that's just a sculpture, and you go, but just to think that somebody had that vision to create something in honor of, and now it's a monument. Here we go. We all go visit it, and we go, like, check it out. It's really cool. But you don't realize what went in to make that happen.
The laborers, the years of work.
Years. That's right, Denise. This didn't take a few months. This was years to build. Years. And you're thinking, holy cow, like, wow, right? And I think that's where we all take certain things for granted. And I think appreciation, that's why I love the book, Gratitude Journal, right? The appreciation for all the different things that are around us. What do we have? Lights on. We don't even think about turning a light switch on. Years ago, we got to get the lantern. We got to light it. We got to hope, like, right? You think of here, it's like, don't worry about it. Put the light on. Got a light. There you go.
Well, unless, as you said, people do have the Live in Gratitude Daily Journal, and they're in our Facebook group, Live in Gratitude Daily, because we talk about that. The simple things, the fact that you and I, across thousands of miles, you're in Toronto, I'm near San Antonio, look at the technology that allows us to create this show, that has allowed us to connect.
Yep.
So I am grateful every day for the simplest of things because I've cultivated that. But before, years ago, I would not have thought about everything. And now, especially being deployed, having lived in third world country.
Yeah, you've seen the worst of the worst.
So, and I lived in Turkey for almost 2 years in the early 90s.
Wow.
So that, I think, really coming back from that at the age of 25, I did realize and appreciate, because I didn't always have electricity. I didn't always have running water. There was many months of cold bottled water, right? Because if it's winter, there's no electricity, no heat, you're using bottled water to take a shower.
To wash? Oh my God, Denise.
I did that in Iraq for several months too.
Holy cow.
So you appreciate the simplest of things. And not everybody learns to do that because we're not really teaching that in our society. And when we do that for the simplest of things, the water, the electricity, your favorite chair, your favorite blanket, so I am, grateful for the simplest of things, especially when everything works. But one of the things I want to ask you, I want to go back to the book, How to Reinvent Midlife Dreams.
Yep.
Now remind me, what year did you publish this?
So when I came back from the trip in 2016, and it's funny, but when I got to pro hockey, it was 2007. Came up with the idea in 2008. It had gone through 3 name changes, and when it was on the trip, that's when things started falling into place. And I went, oh, okay. And when I came back, came up with the name of the book, and it was like, all right, here we go. Now I'm kind of seeing this together. And it wasn't until I met a whole bunch of people who kind of went through like what I did, which was, what do I want for my life, right? Because it's great to say, yeah, get a dream. Find something you want to do. Get your passion. How do you do it? And, what does that mean? Because everybody's got their own meaning to certain words, right? What does that passion mean? It means something that I'm going to get this aha, and I'm going to hear the angels sing, and the sky's going to open up and go, that's my thing? Or is it going to be this little inspiration spark, and you take that and you start growing with it and massively go? And it really is different for everybody else. And so when I did the book, long answer to your question, 2016, And then I was like, okay, let's just start going with it and growing. And it's exciting because it keeps morphing, because now we're in discussion with a couple of publishers. So cross my fingers. Take it bigger, badder, better.
And that's what I thought, that it was 2016, and you and I had met towards the end of 16, because
Correct.
Now in December of 16.
Yeah, I think we started talking in September of 2016 because we had just come back from the trip.
Yes. And so I thought it was that new. And in some ways, you provide so much guidance and support to allow people, though, by using your book, to individually design, reinvent, and figure out, even if they stay in the same career, if they stay in the same business, it still helps an individual to make some changes in other areas of their life that enhances and adds to what they're already doing. Because your book isn't, you have to change your whole life to be happy.
No.
And
little shifts.
Job to be happy. It's what steps can you take so that you are more fulfilled, that you are happier, that you have that passion. And sometimes it is figuring out, for you, your passion for the longest time, and probably still is in regards to watching, I don't know if you play, was hockey.
Yep.
And that sort of has morphed into, the media attention that you were able to create because of hockey, the things that you were able to do, and what you learned from that is the foundation of what you're doing today.
Correct.
But it's not that you had to let go of that world. It's taking it with you in a different way.
Exactly. And so an example, a couple little small things in the book is I came up with, and it was really driving through Arizona, and it was like, okay, the earth has a consistency no matter where you are around the world. There's, we learned it in school: earth, water, fire, and air, right? So those are the elements of the earth. Okay, got it. All right. And I said, is there something in human beings, no matter what color, creed, sex, race, don't know where you live in the world, is there the same thing besides skin and bone and muscles? All right, that's the physical part of us. But what about that we can't put our finger on it thing? Like that it's there. So it was like, oh my God, of course. And beliefs was one of the elements, and it's actually the core element, because from beliefs everything else starts spawning. And people go, well, I believe in Christianity, I believe in Judaism, and I'm going to use beliefs from a religious perspective. It doesn't matter what you believe. As a human being, you have beliefs. See, it's the structure of a belief. And it's like, well, where does that stem from? Like, how do we know? Well, listen, you're going to say something to yourself over and over and over, you're going to believe it. You're going to hear some other people, you're going to believe it. You're going to read something, you're going to believe it. Why? Because you've acquired this ability as a human being. This is why I call it one of the elements in us that goes, believe this, right? The Chicken Little thing, the sky is falling. Okay, well, believe in gravity or not. I don't care if you don't believe in gravity. Fact is, gravity exists, right? Something else may exist. Whether you believe it or not doesn't matter. It's the fact that you have a belief system. And from there, we get into things like the mind's eye. We get into intuition, relationships. I love this because this guru that's been working with me the last year now, I've been following intensely. Relationships are in us. They're not, and like you and I have a relationship, Denise. And this is how he words it, which is great. If you and I hold hands, I have no idea the feeling that you are feeling in your hand. I only know what it feels like to hold your hand. Just as you only know what it feels like to hold my hand, you cannot know the feeling that's going on in me. And a relationship is in us, not in the other person. You have your idea of what a relationship looks like. I have what a relationship looks like. Here we come to the table. If one of us passes away as we get older, God forbid, 120, whatever. Right? Here's the thing. If whoever's left still can think about the other person, the relationship still can exist. Right. So I talk about that in the book from a relationship perspective. So here's the cool thing. Shape any one of those elements, like earth, water, air. Shape one, you start shifting. You start changing. And you start going, oh, wait a second. Right. Laughter. Laughter is a great one. Yes. Laughter is actually in us.
That in the book. because one of the things that most people don't know about me is I actually went to a laughter yoga training, right? I'm a laughter yoga leader. And so when I had gotten your book and I saw that that was one of the 8 elements, I truly believe in the health benefits, the longevity that can be attributed to laughter when one has that in their life.
Life changes. And listen, there's some days that I go and I'm like, I just can't. But the minute the laughter can come back, it's like it lifts weights. Like you just feel elated, And what's interesting? You ever watch children? Children have no problem laughing. They'll laugh at the craziest thing. Even my daughter, she's a teenager, she'll still, out of nowhere, just start laughing. You're and when she gets with her friends, it's hilarious because a bunch of 17-year-old girls, and they'll laugh at a marker, they'll laugh at chips falling, they laugh at it, versus parents no, now you know what that means? Well, it means I got to clean it up. They just look and they just start laughing. Right. And it's okay, so I need to be thinking like a kid with the adult intention, but the childlike attitude, right? Just laugh at things because they're funny and be curious. Yes. If I had any message, that would be it, is laugh and be curious.
Well, Kevin, I want to thank you so much for spending time with me for this interview, for sharing your book, How to Reinvent Midlife Dreams, and sharing about your father-daughter experience on your year-long trip through Canada. June, Canada and the U.S. celebrates Father's Day. My father, though now passed, has been such an influence in my life that, I want to recognize the importance, as we always do with mothers and Mother's Day, recognize the importance of fathers. And of course, on the author's message, recognize men who are authors and fathers. So thank you very much for being one of my guests in the month of June, sharing about your book. And also, I want you to share with our listeners, how can they contact you? How can they find out more about what you do?
Sure. I'm on all social media platforms, so Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. The easiest is from the website. So if you just go to my name, kevinhuhn.com, so KevinHuhn.com. And I always say to people, my last name is a 4-letter word with U being the second letter, so be careful.
And we'll also provide Kevin's information on our social media so you all can contact him. And I highly recommend getting a copy of his book, How to Reinvent Midlife Dreams, regardless of what your age is, right? Because age is just a number. So I highly recommend everyone look for Kevin's book. And I want to thank our listeners for joining us for another episode of The Author's Message on Global Voice Radio. And if you have not yet joined our Facebook group, Global Voice Radio on Facebook, and you can listen to all of our hosts, and also let us know if you want to be a guest on one of our shows. So thank you again, Kevin. Thank you to our listeners, and I hope that you have a great day.
Thanks, Denise.
You are listening to The Author's Message with Denise Joy and Irene Pro for lively discussions and guest interviews on authors, publishers, readers, and of course our listeners. Join us every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern on Global Voice Radio.